Hello, everyone. Welcome to the FAA podcast. Just me for now. Once we get through the news and stuff, John Babington will join us on the NFC West mock draft. His Seahawks drafting 5th and 20th. So get through all this general stuff here real quick. XFL recap. We had a great 4 games this weekend on Easter Sunday. There was 2, including the best team in the XFL, DC Defenders. But then we'll finish up with the NFC West mock draft coming up. So on Saturday, the Battlehawks getting to 6-2, solidifying their place as second place in the North Division of the XFL, beating the Vipers 21-17. Vipers already eliminated, just trying to spoil some people's playoff hopes there. Nick Tiano, AJ McCarron, a surprise inactive for this game, injured. I did not know he was injured, but Nick Tiano started in this one 19 of 34, 55.9%, 194 yards, a touchdown, 2 picks, not very good in that regard, but 8 carries, 51 yards, and 2 2-point conversions. This was also the first ever overtime game this season in the XFL. 3-round shootout was fantastic. Battlehawks won. They got 3 out of the 2. They won 3-2 in the overtime shootout. Jalen McClendon starting once again for Vegas, 13 of 23, 56.5%, 159 yards, a touchdown, 13 carries, 62 yards, a fumble, and 1 2-point conversion. Punter Sterling Hoffrichter, also fake punt touchdown, 64 yards to the house. He threw that touchdown to Gary Jennings there. You see his catch. Lone catch and target of the day was that 64-yard 4th down fake punt touchdown. Not much on the ground. Vegas running back Brian Burt, he led the game in rushing, 9 carries, 57 yards, 2 catches for 18 yards. Brian Hill, another fumble, 4th of the season. That is going to hurt his NFL prospects. 10 carries, 35 yards, that fumble. Did have a good receiving day, though. 6 catches, 37 yards on 7 targets. Leading the game in receiving, Battlehawks wide receiver Marcel Aitman, 4 catches, 67 yards on 6 targets. Yeah, Jennings scored, like I said. Geronimo Allison caught a touchdown from McClendon as well. And then John Lovett ran one in on the ground for the Vipers. Oh, and Hakeem Butler got the lead in receiving touchdowns in the league with his 6th of the season, also having a 2-point conversion reception in overtime. The game winner, or not the game winner, Brian Hills was the game winner, actually. I forgot to put that there on him. Defensively, got to go with the top guy there. Battlehawks linebacker Travis Feeney, nice day for him. 8 tackles, 5 solos, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss, and 1 forced fumble. The Vipers lose, but they cover plus 5.5 easily. Under 44.5, of course, I had the over. Just 1 touchdown away, 38. Also on Saturday, the Renegades getting a leg up in their playoff positioning, getting to 500. Bob Stoops' crew, 18-16 over the Guardians. Quentin Dormady, 28 of 43, 65.1%, 303 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, 5 carries, 17 yards, 1 touchdown on the ground, and 3 fumbles. The turnovers just crushed Orlando all day. Louis Perez getting his first start as a Renegade, 16 of 25, 64%, 190 yards. Pretty decent performance by him. Leading the game in rushing, Arlington running back Letty Brown, 9 carries, 47 yards, 2 catches, 1 yard. His running mate, Davion Smith, also nice day scoring a touchdown. Big day receiving for the top 2 Orlando receivers. Wide receiver Eli Rogers, 10 receptions, 135 yards, a touchdown on 12 targets. And, of course, tight end Cody Latimer leading the league in receiving, 7 catches, 70 yards on 9 targets. Defensively, 2 guys I want to point out. Actually, it's really 3 guys. All the Arlington guys were fantastic. Renegades defensive back Devontae Bosby, 3 tackles, all of them solos, 48-yard fumble return for a touchdown off of Quentin Dormady. And then defensive lineman Will Clark, 3 tackles, 2 solos, 2 sacks, 1 forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. And then linebacker Willie Taylor, 3 tackles, 2 solos, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, a pick, and a forced fumble. Renegades +2 they cover and went outright on under 42. Happy Easter. Easter Sunday, we had a pair of really great games. The second overtime game of the weekend. Roughnecks getting it done, clinching a playoff spot 17-15 over the San Antonio Brahmas. Jack Cohn got the start for San Antonio after Kurt Benkert injured last week. 23 of 41, 56.1%, 190 yards, 2 picks, 2 carries for 14 yards as well for Cohn. Brandon Silvers returning in this game, 17 of 36, 47.2%, 146 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Jaquez Patrick had himself a whale of a day, 16 carries, 96 yards, a touchdown, 4 catches, 38 yards on 5 targets. Really nice day for him in a loss. And then Houston really couldn't run the ball at all most of the day. As you can see, their leading rusher, just 12 yards from Bryson Allen. Landon Akers for the Brahmas, leading the game in receiving. 5 catches, 62 yards on 6 targets. And then Deontay Burnett there scoring a touchdown and the game-winning 2-point conversion in the 3rd round of overtime. Fullback Garrett Owens also catching a 5-yard touchdown. Defensively, I am going to go with Roughnecks linebacker Trent Harris, 4 tackles, 1 solo, 1.5 sacks, 1 tackle for loss. Hasn't had a sack in a while, but nice to see him get 1.5 in this game. Brahmas, they lose, but they cover +6.5 easily, under 38.5. The unders were killing it this weekend, except for this one. The DC Defenders, yes, the 7-1 DC Defenders beating John Babington's Seattle Sea Dragons 34-33 in a shootout. Ben DiNucci, 28 of 42, 66.7%, 301 yards, 3 touchdowns, a pick, 4 carries, 23 yards, 1 1-point conversion, 1 3-point conversion. And then how about Jordan Ta'amu continuing to light it up passing game wise? 17 of 26, 65.4%, 247 yards, 4 touchdowns, passes, 8 carries, 13 yards, a fumble, and a 2-point conversion pass. Not good for De'Aaron King on the day. 0 for 2 passing with a fumble in the running game. Abram Smith was his normal self, a little bit less than his normal self, under 4 yards per carry in this one. Not so great, but 17 carries, 66 yards, scored once again, and 1 catch for 18 yards. How about the newcomer to Seattle, Phillip Lindsay, former Broncos running back and Colts, 8 carries, 23 yards, not a good average, under 3 yards per carry, but he did score a touchdown, caught 2 balls for 6 yards as well. Rykel Armstead catching an 11-yard touchdown for the Defenders. And then the receiving games were ridiculous. Sea Dragons wide receiver Jawan Green leading the game in receiving, 7 catches, or actually second in receiving, 7 catches, 142 yards, 2 touchdowns on 10 targets. And then DC wide receiver Chris Blair, 5 catches, 148 yards, 1 touchdown on 7 targets. Ja'Cour Pearson also is getting a score for Seattle. And then Alex Ellis, the tight end, and wide receiver Brandon Smith scoring touchdowns for DC. Defensively, I'm going to go with the top guy there, Sea Dragons defensive back Quinterio Cole in the loss. 8 tackles, 5 solos, 2 tackles for loss, and a forced fumble. The Defenders +1.5 went outright over 45.5 easily. XFL news, I mentioned the Houston Roughnecks clinched their playoff berth. Well, the DC Defenders also clinching a playoff berth in this game, in the game we just went over there. And the Orlando Guardians, by their loss to to the Renegades, they have been eliminated from playoff contention. USFL news, we are slowly getting some starting quarterback news here as we approach USFL Week 1, Season 2. The Memphis Showboats, my Memphis Showboats, that's my boys. They announced Brady White, former Memphis quarterback. He will start at quarterback for them, which I'm excited about, knows Todd Haley's offense. And the Pittsburgh Maulers have announced their starting quarterback. It is former James Madison and Pitt quarterback James Morgan has also been with the Jets before. Was a 4th-round draft pick of the Jets a couple years ago. College football news, USC as new quarterbacks coach. It is former Cardinals head coach Cliff Kingsbury, also formerly of Texas A&M, or Texas Tech, I mean. Yes, so he will be coaching Caleb Williams this year under Lincoln Riley. That's going to be a hell of an offense, I think. So we'll see how Cliff does at USC. And one transfer portal note, Old Dominion starting quarterback Hayden Wolf has entered the transfer portal as a grad transfer. So that is of note there. NFL news, we had a trade go down today. How about that? As we approach the NFL draft, the Atlanta Falcons acquiring corner Jeff Okudah from the Detroit Lions for a 2023 5th-round selection. That's number 159 overall. Solid player, played really well early last season, and hoping to get a fresh start in Atlanta. They needed some corner help, so now they can try to focus in on other areas of the roster. Potentially the number 3 overall pick in 2020 is gone from Detroit. General news here, at least 6 teams have contacted the Arizona Cardinals about trading up to number 3. They are still unsure on whether they will make or move that pick. So that is one thing we'll be monitoring the next couple of weeks, is that number 3 selection. And YouTube has announced their pricing for YouTube Sunday ticket next year. It is way expensive. I am praying that they have a student discount, but YouTube TV subscribers, you can get it for $349 per season, or $249 if you purchase before June 6th, or it is $389 if you bundle it with Red Zone, $289 if you buy it early. Non-YouTube TV subscribers, it is $449 per season, $349 in the early window, and then $489 with the Red Zone, $389 in the early window. So it's ridiculous. I'm gonna look at the monthly plan for sure, but yeah, it's just crazy. DirecTV didn't have that much, so I don't know. We'll see. And how about Buccaneers linebacker Devin White? He has requested a trade from the team. The team has no plans to trade him. He is coming up on his 5th year, the last year of his contract. So we'll monitor that, but I don't think he's probably their best player on defense. So definitely don't want to lose Devin White if you're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Some draft visits here. The Seattle Seahawks, they hosted Georgia defensive tackle Jalen Carter, possible 5th overall selection there. The Titans, they hosted Kentucky quarterback Will Levis. They're doing their due diligence on the quarterbacks because they know they're going to need one potentially. Malik Willis didn't really look good last year as a 3rd-round rookie, so we'll see. And also TCU wide receiver Quentin Johnston in Nashville. The Panthers hosting a couple quarterbacks, Florida quarterback Anthony Richardson and Alabama quarterback Bryce Young. They also hosted LSU edge rusher BJ Ojulari. Lions, they hosted Tennessee quarterback Hendon Hooker, potentially at number 26. We are wherever the Lions are. I don't remember what the 2nd pick is. But the Lions, you never know on their 2nd pick there. How about the Packers? This one was interesting. They are hosting Penn State quarterback Sean Clifford on a top 30 visit. That is intriguing, to say the least. No visits that I've heard about for Clifford recently. But the Packers doing some work on maybe a late round flyer there. Falcons, they hosted Ohio State wide receiver Jackson Smith-Njigba, TCU wide receiver Quentin Johnston, and Clemson edge rusher Miles Murphy. The Ravens hosting some wide receivers, Ohio State wide receiver Jackson Smith-Njigba and USC wide receiver Jordan Addison. Texans, they hosted Ohio State wide receiver Jackson Smith-Njigba, LSU edge rusher BJ Ojulari, and Clemson edge rusher Miles Murphy. The Bills, they hosted Ohio State wide receiver Jackson Smith-Njigba, USC wide receiver Jordan Addison, and TCU running back Kendre Miller, potential second-day selection there for Buffalo. And then the Cowboys, they hosted Ohio State wide receiver Jackson Smith-Njigba, looking to get some more offense, some more power at the wide receiver spot. Jets and the Bucks, they hosted LSU edge rusher BJ Ojulari. Cardinals, they hosted pair of TCU Horned Frogs, wide receiver Quentin Johnston and running back Kendre Miller. The Vikings, they hosted TCU wide receiver Quentin Johnston and USC wide receiver Jordan Addison. The Jags and Bengals, both hosting Clemson edge rusher Miles Murphy. And the Giants, they hosted Tennessee wide receiver Jalen Hyatt, USC wide receiver Jordan Addison, and TCU running back Kendre Miller. The Patriots, they hosted USC wide receiver Jordan Addison, and the Chargers, they hosted TCU running back Kendre Miller. We had one big free agent signing this weekend. The Ravens making a splash, signing Rams wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. to a 1-year, $18 million deal, $15 million guaranteed. Really crazy that he got that much money at this point in the offseason. And he expects Lamar Jackson to be his quarterback this year. So that is, to be seen. We don't know yet. But how about we get to the NFC West mock draft? John Babington should be coming on here shortly. We'll get this thing loaded up. I know that was really quick. I flew through that news, but I wanted to get John on before he heads the class. So the Cardinals have their own picks, numbers 3, 34, and 66. Seahawks had the most out of the division, number 5 from the Russell Wilson trade, number 20, number 37 from the Wilson trade, number 52 and 83. The Rams have number 36 and 69, and then 77. That is from the Jalen Ramsey trade. And then the 49ers have all 3 of their picks as compensatory selections in the 3rd round, 99, 101, and 102. So let's get the mock draft loaded up here.
Yeah.
What's up, John?
How's it going?
Go ahead, man. Let's get this mock draft rolling here. 3 rounds, and do the NFC West. So using a Pro Football Network's mock draft sim, because PFF's grading system is not working right now. So we won't know how we grade out, but it's fine. So the Cardinals here at number 3, we got an offer for number 3. We got 3 offers actually. So the Colts, they're offering us number 4, of course, and a 2024 3rd round pick. The Eagles, oh, good Lord, number 10 and 30 and a 2024 2nd. I mean, I feel like that has to be taken if
that looks good. What's the 3rd one?
The 3rd one is from the Bucks. They're offering 19, 50, and Mike Evans.
That is intriguing with Mike Evans. However, I don't see that if Arizona's looking to come off of a veteran receiver in DeAndre Hopkins, I don't see the positive of bringing in another veteran receiver as good as Mike Evans is. So I would take that Philly offer.
Yeah, I absolutely hate it for my Eagles, but I mean, if that's offered, that is ridiculous to get 2 firsts and a second to go
Do you
back.
think this would be coming up for Will Anderson?
I think it has to be, but we shall see. Let's accept that one. They are coming up. Yeah, Bryce Young at 1, CJ Stroud at 2. Tyree Wilson is where the Eagles traded up for at 3.
Traits, man, traits.
So literally every pick, pretty much, we're getting offers here. So your Seahawks at 5. Will Levis went to the Colts at 4. So the Seahawks, another 3 offers here. The Colts are offering 35, 79, DeForest Buckner, and a second and a third next year. The Saints, they're giving up 29, 40, 71, 146, and the Broncos second next year. And the Texans are offering number 12 and Titus Howard.
Not going to lie, Rusty. I think those 3 offers, you got to just stick and pick. The one that looks most intriguing, none of them look that intriguing because they're all very far back. The Colts one might be interesting because of DeForest Buckner. However, when you have a generational talent like Jalen Carter and Will Anderson, excusing the off-the-field issues with Carter, on rookie deals compared to DeForest Buckner, you're going to have to pay him a pretty penny when Seattle's already having cap issues now, I think your best bet is just to stick and pick one of those 2 defenders.
Yeah, I concur. I think I would think that the Texans one would be a little close, but with the 2 rookies, the 2 guys going into their second year at the bookends, I think getting an offer of Titus Howard is null and void. It's literally just moving back 7 spots for nothing, really.
I agree. Now, if there were an offer here, and before you click Will Anderson, I'm going to give an argument possibly for Jalen Carter. If Seattle were to get an offer for 6 or 7, I would entertain that, being that Will Anderson, Jalen Carter are both there, but also Anthony Richardson. Seattle would be a great spot for Richardson to sit for a year, and they have an out with Geno's contract, and you could bring Anthony Richardson in to replace him next season. Now, if I were making this choice, Will Anderson is very intriguing. However, I would go Jalen Carter over. Reasoning is Jalen Carter as a defensive tackle, the difference between him and the next defensive tackle on the board, I think, is much higher compared to an edge rusher or an outside linebacker like Will Anderson that you could possibly get at 20. So I'll let you make the decision, but that is I will not be upset if it's Will Anderson.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would pick Anderson at this point. Like you said, if you could get down a couple spots, I think then you're probably looking at Carter, because the late top 10, I think, is where he's going to go, whether that's Chicago, now Philly as the current draft board stands. But you're the Seahawks fan, so I'm gonna go with you. I'm gonna let you pick Jalen Carter at 5.
That'll scare a lot of Seahawk fans with Malik McDowell bad taste in their mouth from a few years ago. But Jalen Carter is a generational talent, as is Will Anderson.
So Christian Gonzalez went to the Lions at 6, Broderick Jones to the Raiders at 7, Will Anderson Jr. Oh my Lord, that is what happened there? I just we'll see what that trade was.
With Atlanta
at number 8, the Panthers went up to get Will Anderson Jr. at 8. And then Paris Johnson went to the Bears at 9. That's why I love Pro Football Network's mock draft, because other team CPU trades too. So, of course, we have more offers as the Cardinals drops down to 10. Will Anderson not there anymore. So this is kind of uncharted territory. I haven't been in this situation. But the Colts want to get rid of DeForest Buckner for some reason. So they're offering 35, 79, and DeForest Buckner. Texans, number 12, and a second round next year. And the Giants, they're offering 25, 57, Adoree Jackson, and a fifth next year. So I'm going to reject the Giants offer. It's right off the bat there. That's not.
I think the only offer there that would interest me, could you go to the first one?
Yeah.
35 is too far to fall down. So the only one here that would interest me is possibly Houston, because Arizona's in a situation where that roster just needs as many picks as possible. This year, Kyler's hurt for most of the season, so it's gonna be a wash. So your goal, I think, with the Cardinals is just to surround Kyler next season with as much talent as possible. Or shoot, maybe you're drafting really early next year and you might be willing to move off of Kyler for one of those top quarterbacks. But for now, the question is, I think you would take the Houston offer if you have two prospects on the board that you feel comfortable with. Looking at the players available, I would say Devin Witherspoon, Bijan Robinson as well, but a team like the Cardinals, a running back's a luxury pick. So I would say Devin Witherspoon's probably the top defensive player there. Anthony Richardson, they would not need a need for. So unless there's another player, possibly Peter Skoronski, they could slide in, then you could possibly consider the Houston deal. If not, I would just stick and pick best player available.
Yeah, I'm actually for the Colts offer. DeForest Buckner at number 10, I think would be a fine value. I think getting a guy that is already proven and has played very well throughout his career, even with what the price tag is going to have with the cap. I'd have to check what the Cardinals cap situation looks like, but I think that one would be intriguing.
It definitely is intriguing. DeForest Buckner has proved himself to be a blue chip player on the defensive line, something the Cardinals they just need talent everywhere. Looking at DeForest Buckner's contract, he has a cap hit of $19.7 million this year, and then a $20.25 million cap hit in 2024. The potential out is this year in 2023, which probably looks like why the Colts are trying to send him out. So if the Cardinals, I would have to look at their cap as well.
Yeah, they have a little under 21 million in cap space.
So is that considering? So they might have to make a little move. His cap is 19.7, so they might just have to make a few moves to afford to pay Buckner plus the draft picks. But
yeah,
adding Buckner to that defense would definitely help them out.
So I'm gonna accept the Colts offer.
Sounds good. I think adding Buckner to that defense gives them a blue chip player, especially along the D line, to replace JJ Watt, automatic leader in the locker room, would be a great help to Arizona's defense.
Okay, so we're getting 35, 79, and DeForest Buckner. Let's check out this Will Anderson trade. So, wow. Okay, the Panthers traded one edge rusher for another, one that they got to pay next year. So, I mean, that kind of makes sense. 39, 93, and Brian Burns to come up 31 selections to get Will Anderson. I mean, I can see why that would happen.
I kind of like that too for both sides, especially Atlanta. That defense, they've been very busy in this offseason adding Jesse Bates. Today, they just traded for Jeff Okudah. So that adding Brian Burns to that defense is very good for Atlanta. And then Carolina gets right away someone to replace him and on a rookie contract.
Yeah, so the Colts came up for Miles Murphy. The Titans, Peter Skoronski, Jordan Addison to the Texans, Joey Porter Jr. for the Jets, Devon Witherspoon for the Patriots, Anthony Richardson to Green Bay, Cam Smith for the Commanders, Deontay Banks for the Steelers, Brian Branch for the Lions. Steelers came back into the first round at 19 to get Jackson Smith and Jigba. We'll check that trade out after the Seahawks. Two more offers for 20. The Buccaneers got the Steelers selection at number 32 as a part of that trade. So they are looking at sending 32 and 49 for 20 and 198. And then the Broncos are looking at sending 67, 68. I believe that's supposed to be wide receiver Cortland Sutton.
I believe so.
And the Dolphins' 4th round pick next year.
The Jackson Smith and the Jigba pick right before, as a Seahawks fan, is heartbreaking. I think adding him as the 3rd receiver in Seattle's offense would open that offense up a lot. But looking at the prospects available in making the Jalen Carter pick at 5, that was with kind of crossing your fingers, hoping that an edge rusher is going to be there to pair with him. And looking at the board, I'm seeing Lucas Van Ness is still there as well. And Rusty, would you be able to check if Nolan Smith is available?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he's right there. Yeah. 20.
All right. So those would be the 2 guys I would be interested in at taking. So I would not look at either of those offers just because Seattle's in the position where you want to add as many players to that defense as you can. And the Lucas Van Ness's versatility and being able to play inside and outside on the defensive line, I think would be very helpful. But the Nolan Smith pick is what intrigues me. Jalen Carter has a lot of red flags off the field, right? So what better than to bring him up to the Pacific Northwest with his teammate who is a vocal leader in the locker room, who can also play his ass off as well. As much as I love Lucas Van Ness, I think pairing Jalen Carter with Nolan Smith is the perfect combo for Seattle's defensive line, but also for Jalen Carter to ensure that he stays in line. So that would be my pick. I'm curious your thoughts.
Yeah, I agree with the edge rushers there. I was actually looking at how the offensive board has swung. I know y'all need a lot of pass rush help, but the offensive board is something else. So Bijan is still there. I know you have Walker, but the tight ends as well. Kincaid and Meyer, both there. Michael Mayer.
I will say with the tight ends, being that both of them are still available, again, this might be crossing my fingers, but you might be able to, even if you don't get those top 2, hopefully you could get Darnell Washington, Sam Laporta, or Luke Musgrave at the top of the 2nd with the other Broncos pick Seattle has. So that might be helpful for them to get a tight end, or even one of the any pass catcher, receiver, tight end at the top of the 2nd. But yeah. Michael Mayer and Dalton Kincaid are both very good picks here. Bijan Robinson here too is very tempting. A little thunder and lightning with him and Kenneth Walker in the backfield.
Yeah, I forgot to check the Steelers trade there. So they traded 32, 49 and Akello Witherspoon for Jackson Smith and Jigba. I mean, that offense is going to be good. They're going to have to win shootouts. They don't have 8 corners. But okay, so I'm fine with going the Nolan Smith route. Versatile edge rusher, can play 3-4-4-3, and looked really good coming off his torn pec after he only played 8 games this past season. So I'm perfectly fine with the Georgia Bulldog there. Chargers. Okay, Giants coming up for Bijan Robinson. I have no clue why. Well, I guess Saquon is on the franchise tag. So 25 and 89 go to the Chargers for 21 for the Giants to draft Bijan Robinson. Sure. Keely Ringo to the Ravens. Isaiah Foskey, Bengals coming up. 28 and a 2nd rounder next year for Isaiah Foskey. From the Vikings. The Jags getting Lucas Van Ness. Chargers, Quentin Johnston. That's a perfect fit. Brian Breesy for the Cowboys. Bills going Zay Flowers. Let me know if you want to trade up too. You can. Dalton Kincaid for the Vikings. Michael Mayer for the Saints.
There's Eckler.
Cardinals back on the clock. So they want 30 and 168 for 54 and Austin Eckler from the Chargers. Bears are offering 53 and 61 for 30 and a 7th next year. I'm not doing that one. So Austin Eckler, they have James Conner. But I mean,
here's my thing. If you're the Cardinals, and I love running backs, they're a luxury pick. The Cardinals are not in a position to be drafting or getting new running backs.
right.
If they're going to be getting new running backs, I see Jahmyr Gibbs on the board, he has a similar game to Austin Eckler, right? So why would you want to pay an older running back when you could get Jahmyr Gibbs? Not that I'm saying Cardinals should go running back here, but that would be my reasoning for leaning against this trade and rather sticking and picking the best player available.
Yeah, he's due $6.5 million this year, or $6.25 million, and so you'd have to pay him as a part of this trade, essentially. And we know that how the paying running back goes usually, in non-Derrick Henry cases. But so yeah, I agree with the rejection of the Chargers trade there. And so Cardinals at 30.
And just to we had traded the Cardinals. They received Forrest Buckner and 2 picks, correct?
Yeah.
35 and 79.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so we already got the Forrest Buckner. So I'm trying to remember what their tackles look like. Because we do have Anton Harrison and Darnell Wright both available, and DeJuan Jones for that matter. I know they need some defensive help still. So you got Trenton Simpson at linebacker. BJ Ojulari, who I mentioned earlier on the show, has a bunch of visits lined up. And one of them is to the Cardinals, I believe. No, never mind. But I mean, I feel like Cardinals can go anywhere at this point. I think the best prospect available on the board is that top guy, Darnell Wright.
With drafting, I think you got to play the game a lot in terms of demand or the quantity of tackles left, and seeing that they have 2 picks, 34 and 35. Do you think one of those tackles, or how many tackles are you comfortable with? And of that amount, is one of them going to be available at the top of the second? I think you can play the same game with the receivers as well as the defenders. Being that the Cardinals are likely moving on from DeAndre Hopkins, they're going to need another guy in the receiving room to pair with who do they have now? They have Zach Ertz at tight end. They have Hollywood Brown. Thank you. Yeah. Darnell Wright, though, that having him as the 29th overall player seems a little low for ranking. So I'd say Darnell Wright would be a great pick there, as well as Jalen Hyatt, the 2 on the top of the list.
Yeah, they have DJ Humphries at left tackle, so I think more right tackle, which is Kelvin Beachum right now. And I think you could slide Beachum in, or DJ Humphries in even, and flip Beachum to the left side. I'm comfortable with all 3 of the tackles that are there. So I think the Chiefs wanting a wide receiver, I think I like your thinking there. I think the Chiefs probably are looking at Jalen Hyatt and just drooling there. So I think maybe we go with Jalen Hyatt.
I like that. And then as a Cardinals fan, hope that Darnell Wright or one of those other tackles are there.
The Chiefs went with DeJuan Jones, DJ Turner for the Bucks, BJ Ojulari to the Texans. Now 34, Dolphins offering 51.84 and a second next year for 34 and 105. And the Commanders are looking at 47 and a second next year for 34 and 213. So we have 2 tackles. I think we should just trade one of these picks, right? We got 2 picks back to back. And
that Washington, I get that reasoning, and that Washington pick would look a little more interesting, being that you get a second in the future as well. However, before accepting a trade is, do you have two players there on the board now that you would like? I think one of the picks, you definitely are going to want Darnell Wright. And unfortunately, in real life, if you're making a trade, you're likely going to know who your trade partner is going to be taking. So in this case, if we're considering Washington, we're going to be like, hey, who are you going to take with the trade? And if they say we want Darnell Wright, then you know, okay, let's reject it. Because Darnell Wright's, I'm assuming that's the guy Arizona would be targeting as our conversation's been going.
Right.
But I definitely get that reasoning if there is only one guy in this range on the board that you would want to take.
Well, we could always just take Darnell right now and trade 35. All
Let's try that.
right. And no one's offering for 35. Okay, I was going to say.
There you go. Maybe that's who they wanted, was Darnell Wright.
So the Chargers now 54 and a second next year for 35 and a seventh next year. And that's the thing. We don't need Mekhi Becton. We just drafted a tackle, Jets. So like we're rejecting that one. So I mean the Chargers is nice. You get another second next year. Which we already got a second and a third, I think, from the Colts, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that would add another second next year. So we'd have 3 second-round picks next year, plus 2/3.
I might say you might also want to just stick and pick, looking at Darnell Washington, an athletic, huge tight end who could sit behind Zach Ertz and effectively be a 6th offensive lineman. The edge from Northwestern, Adetomiwa Adebaware.
Yep.
Very versatile, can play inside, outside. Also another freak athlete. Who is the Cardinals center right now? Didn't their center just retire?
Their left guard and center are terrible. Elijah Wilkinson is the left guard. Center is Hjalte Froholt.
John Michael Schmitz was ranked the #1 center in FBS through college football. As a Seahawks fan looking at 37, that's who they would be targeting. That's who I would be targeting as a Seahawks fan at 37. So I would be very upset if Arizona took a center. Probably means that might be who they would need to take.
Yeah, I like the center there. I do think edge is the premium position, however. So I think maybe looking at the edge spot, because I don't think personally John Michael Schmitz is good, but you also have interior guys coming up like Osiris Torrance and Luke Whippler. So I'm probably going with the edge rush, knowing how it's a premium position and they do not have much there.
I agree. Cardinals need everything.
Yeah. Adebaware. We have 4 straight NFC West picks here. So Rams first pick here. Jets offering 42. They want to get rid of Mekhi Becton here. So
my guess is the Rams or the Jets are looking for that offensive tackle, possibly Anton Harrison. Mekhi Becton, you don't know if he's healthy. He hasn't been healthy for 2 straight seasons. The Rams are very much in a rebuild year as well. I have an interesting thought process here. Could you check the available quarterbacks for the Rams on the board?
Mr.
Hendon Hooker is likely going to need most of the season to heal that knee up. However, Matthew Stafford had the neck injury last year. He's getting up there in age. Rams are going to be rebuilding. And I believe this is the last season where they're not going to have many picks due to the many trades they've made. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But I'm curious your thoughts on a Hendon Hooker pick there.
Yeah, I don't see the Rams as one to go after one of the top 6 quarterbacks there. I think if they're going to draft one, they're going to draft one on day 3. Just because they need a lot more. And I don't think if they did draft Hooker or if any other of the top 6 were available here, they wouldn't be set up well, because it's not the interior. Well, the interior offensive line is the weaker spot than the tackles. I think Joe Noteboom, Rob Havenstein are fine, but they need more help at receiver, and I just wouldn't think they would be set up well. The defense needs a lot, so I think they need more than just a quarterback.
That's a fair point. I thought about that today, and I was very curious about that. Running through that mind game. Looking at who's on the board, Josh Downs at receiver would be able to be a plug and play guy. Elijah Cansey has been having a lot of comparisons to Aaron Donald. A lot of that Pittsburgh undersized defensive tackle. I think an offensive tackle would be a very big need here as well. Who's playing left tackle for them now?
Well, Joe Noteboom. So Noteboom at left and Havenstein at right, I don't think are bad. But yeah, I mean, I could see Harrison. They do have 2 more picks, but yeah, I mean, I like the Downs thing. Possibly, I think I'd go with Cansey though. They need defense more than offense, and really they need freaking corners. But there are literally no corners available. Clark Phillips at 53. So the
Emmanuel Forbes is a little low on that ranking. That might be due to his size, but he does not play as like his size is listed. So if you were to consider a corner, Emmanuel Forbes, I would put above Clark Phillips. I believe Clark Phillips had very poor testing as well, though he's arguably the best nickel corner. The Elijah Cansey pick would be very fascinating as well, as I think he could probably play outside next to Donald, so he has some versatility as well.
Yeah, I like Cansey here just based off what PFN's rankings have, and the hope is that we get a corner at 69. So Seahawks back on the clock. Let's see if there's any offers, and if there is. Washington looking at 47 and a second next year for 37 and 154.
I would again just stick and pick. And I mentioned it earlier. I would go John Michael Schmitz, best center in college football last season. Seattle has had a revolving door at center ever since the Max Unger trade for the tight end from New Orleans, who will remain unnamed. And it's about time, in my opinion, as a Seahawks fan, that Seattle gets their center for the future and solidify that offensive line.
Yeah, I like it. I think the offensive line will be fantastic after that. Just maybe you need to add another guard and be good to go. Definitely other considerations would be Josh Downs, I think, at this point. And of course, Darnell Washington as well. The Raiders here, they traded it in the Dolphins, getting Anton Harrison for 51 and 84. The Falcons that was the trade earlier.
Will McDonald at 39 is a steal. Will McDonald 39 is a steal. Very twitchy.
Patriots just traded up for Josh Downs, 46 and 117 to New Orleans. Javon Dexter for the Titans. Jets back-to-back picks, Drew Sanders and Cody Mock. All right. Falcons going Osiris Torrance. That line is pretty good now. Cedric Tillman for the Packers. This is like a Packers dream draft for Packers fans. Felix Anudike-Uzomah for the Saints. Trenton Simpson to the Commanders. Lions taking Jack Campbell. I love Jack Campbell this year. Keon White to the Bucks. Luke Musgrave for Bucks. Raiders getting Clark Phillips, and the Seahawks offered from Green Bay 78 and a second next year for 52 and 198. Darnell Washington is available.
Could you scroll down a little? I do like, and I want to discuss the tight end situation in Seattle as well. Scroll down a tiny bit more, please.
Hendon Hooker.
The Hendon Hooker discussion I had with you about the Rams, I think could also apply to Seattle. There's a lot of talk about Seattle taking a quarterback, and I think the only way it makes sense for Seattle to take a quarterback is if they think they could supplant Geno as the starter next season. Otherwise, you're drafting a backup, and I don't see the reason in drafting a backup if you have Drew Lock, unless that backup is planning to take over.
Well, as far as I understood the Geno Smith contract, it's a 1-year deal, pretty much.
Exactly. So if you're going to take a quarterback, it would be to replace Geno so you can get out on that deal. In this situation, I see Darnell Washington, which is one of the top tight ends available. He's a de facto 6th offensive lineman. Seattle has a few $1 million they need to save in order to sign this draft class. Currently, they're in effective cap space in the red. So if you get Darnell Washington, you could slide him in. They currently have 3 tight ends, Colby Parkinson, Will Dissly, Noah Fant. If you bring in Darnell Washington, Noah Fant is a free agent at the end of the year, as is Colby Parkinson. Will Dissly is coming off an injury. So there are a lot of question marks in the tight end room, and bringing in Darnell Washington would allow you to have flexibility to possibly move on from a Parkinson or Noah Fant a year early. So that would be my pick.
Yeah, I mean, I like it if it's not Hooker. So 83 is the next Seahawks pick. So we'll see what is there. But yeah, I'm fine with that. So Chicago, they're going Tuli Pelotu, Jalen Duncan for the Chargers, Rashee Rice for Detroit, JL Skinner for the Jags, Noah Sewell for the Giants, Cowboys taking Jahmyr Gibbs to pair with Tony Pollard, Steve Avila for Buffalo, Bengals going Tucker Kraft, Bears taking Marvin Mims, Eagles taking, never mind, they're trading back with New Orleans, Siaki Ika, Eagles getting 71 and 117 from the Saints, Tyreek Stevenson for the Chiefs, Bears going Devin Achane, Derek Hall for the Browns. They traded up for that one. Cardinals back on the clock. Raiders offering 70 and 174. Bills 91, 130 and a third next year for 66 and 168. I kind of like the Vegas trade. We got Jalen Hyatt, Darnell Wright, Adi Tamiwa, Adebawore, and of course DeForest Buckner from the Colts. So I don't know. I think moving back 4 spots isn't terrible, and you pick up that'd be 5th round pick, I think. So, I mean, they could take Emmanuel Forbes, of course, because they need all the corner help they can get. John's getting Vegas or Zoom screwing up on him there. So he said he likes the Raiders trade though. So I think that's what we're going to do. I mean, of course they need corner. They need a lot of help at the corner position. But there are some guys there that could help in a couple picks. Let's just pray that Emmanuel Forbes isn't there. And
I'm back.
Let's just pray Emmanuel Forbes is there in 4 picks. And if he's not, we'll just draft one of the other corners there. So yeah, I think the Raiders trade is fine. Getting a 5th round pick.
I agree. Sliding only back 4 picks.
So let's check out the Cleveland trade. They traded 74 and 142 for 65 to get Derek Hall. The Raiders, they got Mozzie Smith. That's who they traded up for. Broncos back-to-back Julius Brents and Brandon Joseph. Rams on the clock, 88 and Calebon Chason for 69. Bills giving a 91 and a third next year for 69 and 251. I don't think we can afford to do that for LA. So
how many years does Calebon Chason have left on his deal?
Let's see.
Because if he's got 2 years left, I might like that pick to replace, because they lost Leonard Floyd this year, correct?
Yes, I don't think so. Give me a sec. Trying to find where Chason's contract is on the Jags. I should have just searched for it instead of, okay, there we go. He is
drafted in 2020, so 2021.
This is the last year of his deal because they declined his fifth-year option.
Interesting. Okay, so Leonard Floyd is currently a free agent. The Rams edge rusher depth chart looks very rough. So do you think you can get an edge rusher that's better than Calebon Chason this season? That trade kind of intrigues me because you're only sliding back about 10, 15 picks?
It's 19
picks.
But I think they need more help at corner. I think corner is the worst spot. I mean, their edge is not good either. They literally have nothing on the edge. But at the same time, I think putting Emmanuel Forbes with Kobe Durant and Robert Rochelle, I think would give you a solid, and Darian Kendrick as well.
I think Emmanuel Forbes at the top of the third is a steal as well.
Yeah.
He's arguably a fringe first round corner. To get him in the top of the third is.
Yeah, I'm gonna reject this one. I'm just not as high. I'm not that high on Calebon Chason, so I go Emmanuel Forbes with the Rams. That's who I think I like obviously the most value there. So Cardinals back up at 70. Bucks offering 82 and a third next year for 70 and 180. I don't like that because you're giving up the extra. I never remember what the cutoff number is for fifth, sixth round. I think that's a fifth.
I don't like losing that. You lose 2 picks and you only get 1 pick this year.
Yeah,
I would reject that as well.
So Cardinals, so yeah, Hyatt, Wright, Adebawore, and DeForest Buckner. How about I was gonna say get Buckner a running mate in Keanu Benton. The only thing with Keanu Benton, they are running a Jonathan Gannon defense, so it's a 4-3. They're switching from a 3-4. And I think Benton is more of a 3-4 nose tackle. So I don't really like him here.
Do you have the Cardinals safety depth chart?
Yeah, so they have Jalen Thompson, Budda Baker. They have Isaiah Simmons as the backup to Jalen Thompson at strong safety. And then Josh Thomas, Juju Hughes.
I kind of like that Sidney Brown safety to pair him up in Arizona. I'm just looking at best player available on defense. I like Keanu Benton as well, but for the same reasons you just mentioned, that would be my reservations there. So Sidney Brown is the defender that stands out to me.
You don't like Antonio Johnson?
I like Antonio Johnson is a great safety as well. I just look at Sidney Brown. I have him ranked a little higher.
Short.
And they don't have a
Very short. 5'9", 211. Man, that's tough size to overcome at safety. Uh, so yeah, I mean, personally, I like Antonio Johnson.
I
So I
think
think,
adding a safety, no matter which one of those two you take, would be a help to Arizona as well. They're just in the business of best player available.
yeah, uh, I'm gonna pick Antonio Johnson. The Eagles at 71. They are going Q Blue Kelly. All right. Luke Whippler to the Titans. Hendon Hooker, there he is.
There
Bucks
you
trading
go.
82 and 153.
That's
The-
a good landing spot for Hooker also to possibly
Yeah,
supplant and hopefully supplant Baker Mayfield.
and Kyle Trask.
Can't forget Kyle Trask.
Falcons, that's interesting. They're trading up for a tackle, Blake Freeland, 75 and 225. So they just move up one spot. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, why not? You can never have enough offensive linemen. Sam Laporta to the Texans. Patriots, no more. The Browns getting Keanu Benton from New England, 98 and 111 to the Patriots. And that's a terrible pick for for LA, because I think that would have been a great selection, because Bobby Brown is their nose guard right now. So yeah, we're not getting any trade offers for 77.
Who are the available edge rushers? As we mentioned earlier, the edge room in LA is not great.
Andre Carter, I'm down with that. I don't know why they haven't ranked 89.
What are your thoughts on Mike Morris from Michigan? This might be a little rich. I think Andre Carter might be the better pick here, but I like Mike Morris as well, if not considering Andre Carter.
I see Mike Morris. I mean, I'm sure he could stand up in their 3-4. No, he's a little big to stand up in a 3-4 though. 275. That's a big outside linebacker.
That would be a large.
Andre Carter is nice, 256. So that's why I like Andre Carter. Really, the weight difference there, but also I know Andre Carter didn't have as great a season as last year as he did in 2021, where he went crazy. He had like 15 sacks, but yeah, I think Andre Carter is perfect for a 3-4 defense like the Rams run. And I don't really have too much on Mike Morris. I think he's more of a day 3 guy though.
Yeah, I like Andre Carter.
Yeah, he's a steal at 77. I would have Andre Carter mid second at the worst. Cameron Latu, that's an interesting one, to the Packers. Cardinals back on at 79. So we missed out on Keanu Benton. Again, though, he's more of a 3-4 guy anyways, not a 4-3 that the Cardinals are transitioning to. So we already got the wide receiver, or else I would look at Kayshon Boutte. How about let's go corner? Eli Ricks.
That's exactly where I was thinking.
Antonio Johnson's teammate Jalen Jones is there too.
I think Eli Ricks would be the better pick here. He's in the defensive backfield for Alabama, so he's not necessarily gonna have the big stats and that his teammates have, but I think Eli Ricks would be a better pick there for corner.
Yeah, they signed Rashad Fenton. They got Marco Wilson, Antonio Hamilton, Nate Hairston, and Christian Matthew, Chris Boyd as well there. Yeah, he's got Seattle corner size there, 6'2", 188. But yeah, I like Eli Ricks for Arizona, Jonathan Gannon and co. Steelers going Owen Papo. I like that. Matthew Bergeron for the Lions. Texans getting Mohamed Diabate. 2 offers for 83. Everyone wants 83 for who? I don't know. Zach Charbonnet, maybe. Ravens offering 86 and 124 for 83 and 151. Vikings looking at 87 and a Lions fourth next year for 83 and 198. I think I kind of like the Vikings because you're moving just 4 spots. You're giving up a later pick in the second pick, and you're getting a 4 next year, which is what the Ravens are offering this year anyways, but for a pick that's 47 spots above as the Seahawks second pick.
Now, I think the reason there's 2 offers is because you got a running back on the top of the board right there, Zach Charbonnet.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at Seattle's depth chart, behind Kenneth Walker, you have DJ Dallas and a ton of guys who have not played many, if not at all, any snaps in the NFL. So I think if you were to add Zach Charbonnet to that backfield, that would help give your Seattle security in the running back position. The last few years, Seattle enters the season, everyone thinks they have a stable of backs and they'll be okay. And then by week 10, they're all hurt. So I think you have to go with the running back here.
I like someone later. I like a Georgia Bulldog for them later, though. Or Tajay Spears there. All these kind of guys, because I think, you probably know better, but I think Kenneth Walker is not a pounder per se, but has the ability. I see Charbonnet and Tank Bigsby is definitely a boomer in there. But I see Charbonnet as more of a boomer too.
Zach Charbonnet has he's
bigger
one of those players where he doesn't stand out in any aspect of the game, but he's just very solid in every aspect of the game, if that makes sense. Great pass protector. You can throw him in as a third down back right away and allow Kenneth Walker to just play on the early downs. And he's just gonna, hit the hole and be that meat and potatoes type of player. I think though those other running backs you mentioned are very good players, and I think Seattle later in the draft will probably take a second running back because they need the depth, especially DJ Dallas is on his last year of his deal. Zach Charbonnet, in my opinion, is just in a tier above all those next running backs. Of the running backs you mentioned, though, the one I would look at as Roschon Johnson, who has a very similar build to Chris Carson back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be one that stands out to me. If you're not going to go running back, as I would think Zach Charbonnet is the best pick. 2 other players that stand out here are Sidney Brown, as I mentioned earlier. Pete Carroll loves his safeties, and they just had to let go of Ryan Neal due to the cap issues that they're having. Jamal Adams is coming back from injury. Quandre Diggs is getting up there in age. They just signed Julian Love. So Sidney Brown could be an interesting pick there, as well as Ivan Pace Jr. at the linebacker position. There's a lot of need. We just re-signed Bobby Wagner. Jordan Brooks is not going to be back till late in the season, so there's going to be some depth issues at linebacker as well. So if you don't go to the running back route with Zach Charbonnet, those would be 2 defenders that could be considered as well.
It's funny because I was looking at offense. I was looking at Kayshon Boutte there to add to get the third receiver spot.
Personally, I would not touch Kayshon Boutte in this draft. Very highly ranked prospect coming into LSU, did not perform very well, had very questionable reasons why he decided not going back to LSU last season. That is possibly a day 3 flyer. I think Pro Football Network has him ranked higher than he'll likely get picked.
Yeah, or the corner spot as well. I think could use some corner depth behind Woolen and Kobe Bryant there. But yeah, we'll go with your you're the Seahawks guy, so we'll go with all your picks. Zach Charbonnet. There's a lot of words to say that we're picking Zach Charbonnet, but got to make it somewhat.
It's my analysis of the NFC West teams is not obvious. Seahawks are what I know the most about.
The Raiders going Christopher Smith. That's way too high for him, I think. Sidney Brown to the Chargers. Ravens taking Trey Palmer, speedster. Darius Rush for the Vikings. Jalen Jones for the Jags. Chargers going Ivan Pace Jr. Cowboys, A.T. Perry. Bills trading Chiefs going Kayshon Boutte, 95th, 95 and a 5th next year for Buffalo.
I'll be very curious where Boutte ends up going, because he has the traits that made him such a highly ranked recruit. It'll be very fascinating. I might be eating my words in 3 weeks now.
Bengals going Israel Abanikanda, Zach Kuntz to the Falcons. I absolutely love Henry Tuo to the Eagles. Deion Henley for the Bills. Cardinals back on the clock. And how about we do Tank Bigsby right now? Let me see what the Cardinals have behind James Conner. Corey Clement, they did draft Keontae Ingram last year. I was severely disappointed in him, but I mean, you got to keep. Actually, no. We're not going to do that. We're going to go with a guy that's right here, the Badger, Joe Tippmann, because as you asked earlier, their center is Hjalte Froholt. So
I think Tippmann there is a great pick. Joe Tippmann's a very athletic center who would be able to be a plug and play guy in the middle.
6'6", 313. That's fantastic size. That's kind of tall for a center, I feel like, but
it is very tall for a center. And to address the running back depth, there's a lot of good running backs on the board left, so you could probably get one at the top of the 4th.
I don't know how Kyler's going to see around him, but good luck, sir. Joe Tippmann to the Cardinals. Zach Evans to the Commanders. Patriots going Warren McClendon. Wow, we have a trade offer for 99. 119 and a 4th from the Vikings.
That does not seem like great value.
Yeah, I don't like it.
49ers got a lot of picks coming up.
Yeah, it's their first of 3 out of the last 4 in the 3rd round. So, like, I haven't drawn up the 49ers depth chart this entire time because we haven't had the pick. But so let's get 3 49ers here. What do the San Francisco 49ers need? I don't know. When you look at what's available, safety could be, Jordan Battle is there. They need a tackle. They need a right tackle because McGlinchey signed to Denver. So Carter Warren is sitting there. So is Tyler Steen from Alabama.
Another consideration possibly would be edge, unless you trust Clelin Ferrell to be one of your starting 4 and just keep adding to that defensive line as the 49ers love doing over the last few years. And I think corner as well would be a spot to target, especially as they lost, I believe, Jimmy Ward to Houston as well.
But yeah, they lost him and they lost Emmanuel Mosley.
Even more reason. Who are the corners? Jartavius Martin from Illinois, I think, would be your best pick right there.
Yeah, I mean, it's also like, who are the Raiders going to pick, right?
That's the big question, because you're going to get 3 of the next 4 guys, assuming you don't make any other trades. You mentioned Carter Warren from Pittsburgh. There's also Tyler Steen from Alabama. So if you like both of those tackles, then you could go the corner. The question is, who's the Raiders going to take?
Yeah, so looking at them, I think the Raiders are actually going to take Kendre Miller. Probably.
They got their tackle in Broderick Jones.
Right. So I think I want to take Carter Warren, though. I mean, I have no clue who the Raiders are going to take, but
I think Carter Warren would be a good plug and play at right tackle, or have him compete with Colton McVitz.
Yeah, 6'5", 311. So this is where I do miss the PFF, because even though some of the guys, they don't have full analyses for, mostly all the guys they have, the snap counts of where they played, especially when it comes to offense and defensive line. Where a guy plays, you never know. But I believe Carter Warren played both right and left at Pitt. So that's who I'm going to go. 99. Raiders at 100. Okay, they went center. John Gaines. I've never even heard of John Gaines.
John Gaines, great player for UCLA. That's your SEC bias right now talking.
119.
I still see Jartavius Martin available.
The Vikings won in here. For a wide receiver, I would have to think, because you got 3 guys on there that are available. 101 and 255. I'm just not having it with the Vikings right now.
I agree. That Jartavius Martin corner is who stands out to me. I think he's got to be one of the 2 picks.
Yeah, I like that. Charvarius Ward, Diamador Lenore, Samuel Womack, Isaiah Oliver, the top 4 corners on the depth chart. So I'm fine with that. I think definitely a spot of need. So, and then 102, are the Vikings going to offer again? Okay, they didn't. Which doesn't make sense.
They must have been targeting that corner.
It's fine. But last pick here. And
I think the mention of receiver by is fascinating. Brandon Ayuk is on the last year of his deal. And then you have Juwan Jennings. Deebo Samuel, ideally you don't want him to be he is a receiver running back. So ideally you're going to want to have guys who can play outside. That way you could keep Deebo in the role he's best playing. So because of that, I think receiver here would be a very fascinating pick as well.
Yeah. The thing with receiver is they did draft Denny Gray in the 3rd round last year. So he's going into 2nd year. See how he develops. I don't really know anyone else. The only other one, DeMarvin and Obershone, they do need a 3rd linebacker. Dre Greenlaw, Fred Warner, obviously, but then Oren Burks is shown as their starting Sam linebacker.
They did just lose Azeez Al-Shaair in free agency, so DeMarion Overshone. That is the other guy who stood out to me as well, to be bringing in. So I think if you're not going receiver route, DeMarion Overshone would be the way to go.
Yeah. So
is Tyler Scott really 5'9"?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a short guy. Yeah, if we're going wide receiver, I'm going Xavier Hutchinson. I think the Niners like their guys big, but I
kind of like the linebacker pick.
Yeah, I have loved DeMarvin Overshone since like the start of last year. So I think that's where I'm going to go, even though it's overdrafting it per PFN, but it's fine. So here we go. This is what we got. The Cardinals, Jalen Hyatt at 30th overall, Darnell Wright at 34, Adi Tamiwa, Adebaware at 35, Antonio Johnson at 70, Eli Ricks 79, Joe Tippmann at 96. And then we acquired DeForest Buckner and the Eagles' 2nd-round pick next year as well. So I think Cardinals did fantastic work there.
I think this is going to be very good in terms of building the offensive line and that defense, and even getting that extra second next year is going to be very helpful in terms of just having options next season. If the new coaching staff and GM feel that Kyler's not the guy, then you likely are going to have a high pick because he hasn't been playing most of the season. Or if they come in and they're like, all right, we're going to keep building around Kyler, this is a good nucleus for Kyler to be playing around.
Yeah, even though more than likely that pick in a second is going to be closer to a 3rd round with how well the Eagles are set up right now. Rams didn't trade any of their picks. Got Kalijah Cansey at 36, Emmanuel Forbes at 69, Andre Carter at 77. I think that's a 3 solid foundational players for their defense as they try to turn that thing over.
Yeah, especially if you look at the big name defenders who are on the who've already left or getting up there in age. You got Jalen Ramsey coming out, Emmanuel Forbes coming in, Aaron Donald, best defensive tackle ever. Don't know how much longer he's going to keep playing, especially for a team that's not competing. Kalijah Cansey be able to come in and learn under the GOAT. And then Andre Carter, I wouldn't be surprised if Andre Carter is putting up big numbers because he's playing next to the best defensive tackle to ever play.
Right. San Fran, same situation. Didn't trade any of their 3 picks. Carter Warren at 99, Jartavius Martin at 101, and DeMarvion Overshown at 102. San Fran's a tougher one. Not many holes in their roster. So, getting a right tackle and help at corner and linebacker there.
Ideally, these 3 picks are plug-and-play starters to replace guys who've left in free agency. And then worst case, they're added depth to help bolster the few holes that they have. The 49ers' biggest question is just who's quarterback? Is Purdy healthy? Is Trey Lance healthy? Is Sam Darnold going to start? I would trust whoever is starting at quarterback for them. The 49ers will be a Super Bowl favorite no matter what.
Right. And then your Seattle Seahawks did not trade any of the picks as well. Jalen Carter at 5, Nolan Smith at 20, John Michael Schmitz at 37, Darnell Washington at 52, Zach Charbonnet at 83. I will not do any analysis and let you go.
Seattle's biggest needs are the front 7. So the only issue I have here is that we did not grab any linebackers. So that would be priority come day 3. However, you do have Bobby Wagner, Devin Bush as Band-Aids until Jordan Brooks comes back. Another point that might happen is they might be playing big nickel, bringing in a third safety and dropping Jamal Adams down to play linebacker. So there's some versatility on the defense there. So I really like the bolstering the defensive line with Carter and Nolan Smith to help that front 7. John Michael Schmitz is a plug-and-play center. Hopefully will be multi-contract starter for the Seahawks. That offensive line for the bookend tackles, your new center, and then your good guards is looking very strong. Might just need to add some depth. And then you also have versatility in the tight end room where maybe you trot out 4 tight ends or possibly look to move on from Noah Fant. And then the running back depth, Zach Charbonnet, I think could be a starter in this league. So pairing him with Kenneth Walker, I think is a steal in the 3rd.
Yeah, probably. Like I said, the only one that I would probably change that Charbonnet picked something else, but getting Georgia players is usually not a bad option in the draft. But yeah, I think it's a fantastic draft for Seattle up front on both sides of the ball, getting better in that big area of need. So I think overall it is pretty solid for all teams. I do think, though, I'm going to go with the Cardinals as my number 1, just based off how the trades went, what they got. The weight of DeForest Buckner, I think, was a big thing in my ranking them number 1. The Rams and Niners, it's hard to say because of not having a first or second with the Niners and not having a first with the Rams. So I'm going to go Seahawks 2nd, and then probably Rams 3 and Niners 4.
Who is your favorite individual pick?
Like based off team fit?
Yes, like best, not just best player, but best fit with the player going to the team.
I would probably say either John Michael Schmitz to the Seahawks because of the need fitting up to the player, and also that he comes from Minnesota, which is that ground and pound Big Ten running attack, which I know Pete Carroll wants to do. And the other guy is Andre Carter, which I already talked about a little bit. I think that's fantastic selection in the 3rd round as a guy that had, I don't remember the exact number. I think it was 15 sacks in 2021. Still had, I think 5 last year, which wasn't terrible, but the Army team overall wasn't as good as in 2021. So he really didn't get a lot of attention last year, but I think putting him into that 3-4 defense is a great fit, and he's going to be the number 1 edge rusher right away.
It'll be nice to see Andre Carter in an NFL locker room as well, where he's actually focusing on building his body to an NFL body rather than the way they're working out their players at Army is not necessarily focusing on the football field.
Mhm.
I would say my favorite pick, Kalijah Cansey. I'm going to give you two since you gave me two. Kalijah Cansey, first off, falling all the way to 36. The Rams are arguably getting a top 15 talent at the top of the second round. And I think the comparisons to Aaron Donald might be a little unfair, being that Aaron Donald is the greatest defensive tackle of all time. But that burst and that twitchiness is there. And being able to learn from Aaron Donald, another undersized defensive tackle, would be perfect for him to possibly supplant Aaron Donald if he were to hang him up one of these years, as he's been flirting with. The other pick is Seattle, Nolan Smith. I think Jalen Carter at 5 obviously is a risk, especially over Will Anderson, considering the off-the-field issues, but being able to bring his teammate, a teammate who's been a leader in the locker room for that two-time championship-winning Georgia defense. I think bringing in those two defensive linemen is a perfect fit for Seattle. So I think Nolan Smith at 20 is a sweet spot.
Just want to mention a couple more draft visits that I got on the Twitter feed here. The Raiders hosting Ohio State quarterback CJ Stroud, as is the Colts and the Lions. And then the Giants going to host Marvin Mims. And one free agent visit to note, the Panthers hosting your former guy, corner Trey Flowers, which Scott Fitter helped to draft in 2018.
I'll throw another one in there. I'm seeing Kelly Ringo is visiting the Seahawks, as is nose tackle Robert Cooper from Florida State.
Okay, I have not heard of Robert Cooper. That's first I've ever heard of his name. So
6'2", 335 pounds. That's all I got on him.
Yeah, it's a big boy. But all right, I think that's a good mock draft. Continuing our mock draft series as we approach the NFL 2023 NFL draft at the end of the month. So next week we'll be back talking week 9 XFL recast. We'll also have USFL week 1 to recap as they kick off season 2 this weekend. Have all the NCAA NFL news for you. And then we will be in XFL week 10 next week. So last week of the regular season for XFL next weekend. So we'll be back on Friday talking, previewing all the games there and giving you the AFC South. Or no, we already did AFC South. We'll be giving you the NFC North mock draft. So hopefully I'll have some Packers fans on here to talk about what the Packers are going to do at number 15.
Is that Rodgers deal going to go through by then?
Yeah, we'll see. Don't forget to follow us on all our social media at FAA Podcast on Instagram and Twitter, FAA_bets as well. FAApodcast.com is our website. You can check us out here on YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. Thank you, John, and we'll see you back on Football Friday.